so this is what's happening. And I've written 2 series of books, or writing 2 series. The first one, Security Risk Senators, Parts 1 and 2, which profiles 30 currently serving US senators and exposes their ties to China, to Iran, or North Korea in some instances, Cuba, some of the globalist organizations like the WEF, and also the American communist and Islamist movements. So Communist Party USA, Democratic Socialist America. So you've got at least 30, I would say more like 40 US senators who are completely in the pocket of the hard left. Then the second series, which number 3 is just about to hit the streets, which will talk about Florida, Maxwell Frost, Darren Soto from Kissimmee, and Kathy Castor from Tampa. This book is going to expose about 90, this series of books, 6 of them in total, 2 of them are released. House Un-Americans is exposing over 90 of your current serving Democratic Congress members for ties to China, North Korea, Iran, the Communist Party USA, Black Lives Matter, Democratic Socialists of America, radical Marxist groups like CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations. Look, people will be shocked when they read this stuff. Absolutely shocked. You see these people on TV every night. You take Adam Schiff from California. Now he's going to be the senator from California. For 2 years, he went on about Trump and his Russia collusion endlessly as head of the Senate House Intelligence Committee. At the same time, he was working with the Committee of 100, Communist China's main influence operation on the country. He's been working with them for 15 years and nobody called him. And then he says, I really support Israel. Yeah. But he's working with the Muslim Political Action PAC, which is a terrorist front organization, all at the same time. And nobody called him. So we deal with it, we expose, like in Connecticut, you got 5 members of Congress. All of them work with the Communist Party USA, as do both senators, as does the governor. The Communist Party USA, which most Americans don't even realize still exists, runs Connecticut. Runs it. They run it, which is why Connecticut has horrible taxes and every rich person wants to leave and go to Florida. But our congressmen and senators are connected to Liberation Road, Communist Party USA. Some of them are members of Democratic Socialists of America. They're connected to the Council on American Islamic Relations, the Iranians, the Chinese, the Cubans, the North Koreans, and other enemies of America. It isn't just Ocasio-Cortez or Ilhan Omar. It is at least 90 of your current serving Congress members, at least, minimum. That's what I can prove.
So we can personally tell you that we actually met with Maxwell Frost before he was even elected. And he came to my location. He said to us, we're going to have, I'm for gun laws, restrictions. And I looked at him and I'm like, I went to John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I was the VP of the gun club. You're talking to the wrong person. Like, I just couldn't believe that he came into my location. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. We're a constitutional republic, right? And my forefathers said that you are not to touch my guns. And I just could not believe that somebody could walk in and just say to me, because it's like, I'm offended. I was offended. How do you like that one? I was offended that somebody would come in and tell me that they're literally threatening my right that shall not be infringed to be able to have and protect myself from this tyrannical government. My goodness.
Well, it's a credit to you that you survived John Jay as you did. Well done. Yeah. But
Thank
look, Maxwell Frost says, I'm not a socialist. My family came from Cuba. Absolute lie. Absolute lie. He is recorded as a member of Democratic Socialists of America. He has worked with them, but he's the young darling, of 26, 20, probably 28 by now. but he's just a kid basically. But just the arrogance of the guy. What was his reaction when you told him that?
Well, kind of shut him down. He wanted to be able to continue talking, but he made a couple of points where we were like, Sunshine, you're talking to the wrong people. I mean, seriously, like, we're not your target audience. And the woman who brought him in, because she was like, oh, this would be great. You should meet him. I don't think she really understood that, what was happening in his.
No, well, clearly not.
Yeah.
He took over from Val Demings, I believe, who was
Yep.
not quite as bad, but well, almost as bad. But look, he is a full-on Marxist.
Yes.
And he's just, he is he was very pro-Palestine for a while, but then he got some money from some Jewish organizations, so he shut his mouth a bit. But now he's back full on again. He's joined in, basically on the side of Hamas. That's what he is. He is a Marxist revolutionary posing as a liberal Democrat, as many of them are. And right next door, you got Darren Soto, who works with Liberation Road and the Freedom Road Socialist Organization and CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. And over in Tampa, you got Kathy Castor, who worked with ACORN, who works with these far left organizations and has basically enabled Cuba to get a foothold. She has worked for years to give Cuba a foothold in this state, right near MacDill Air Base, right near Central Command, the most strategic part of America. The Cubans have always been trying to infiltrate this area, and she's got air travel arranged so they can come in and just get every bit of information they can on our very strategic military operations. So, this is what's going on. We assume our politicians are loyal to America. That's a very false assumption, because what you got to understand, in 1994, the Marxists took over the American labor movement. And the labor movement is what controls the Democratic Party. They decide who gets nominated and who gets funded. So the communists took over the unions, and they used the unions to make sure only left-wing Democrats got elected, or as much as they possibly can. And so the Democratic Party has gone way to the left. And the proof of this is very simple. Before 1994, the American unions were the main opponents of illegal immigration. They had people on the border stopping it, trying to stop it, because it takes jobs from American workers. It depresses American wages. The unions hated illegal immigration. And Bill Clinton from that era and Harry Reid from that era would make all these speeches condemning illegal immigration, how it's hurting American workers, how 250,000 a year coming across the border is a national security threat. 250,000 a year. That's a month now. But it was a national security threat then. But then the Marxists took over the AFL-CIO and changed their policy from opposing illegal immigration to supporting it, because they wanted millions of new Democrats to come into the country and hundreds and maybe thousands of revolutionaries to come into the country. So that's why we got a complete reversal on the union policy from opposing illegal immigration to supporting it, which is why the Democrats flipped exactly the same way. That's how it works.
I saw a very young Nancy Pelosi video talking about how illegal immigration is an issue for America, and she absolutely has flipped. Trevor,
Yes.
I would love for you to talk to those immigrants that have come to America for their freedom and really see and understand what's happening politically speaking. Because I personally can say that my family came here, German family came here because of Hitler. Like, they ran from Germany to come to America for that safe, to be safe. And now we've got all these people that are sitting here that are, real immigrants to our country that came here legally, that wanted to have all their freedom, the Vietnamese and whatnot. And they're going, okay, so what do we do to save America? Because we came here because of the freedom. We can't go back home. So how do we get that base moving and doing what it is that they need to do to secure the freedoms that they came here to get?
We see a lot of these, especially the Vietnamese, they didn't want to talk about the war. So their kids didn't really understand what they'd fled from. They wanted to protect their kids from the hardships they'd been through. So now you get a lot of third generation Vietnamese who are basically little liberals. They've been through colleges. And the thing is, these immigrant groups valued education, so they made sure they sent their kids to college, which was about the worst thing they could possibly do.
Right.
You know, they didn't understand that. They didn't know American colleges were more communist than the countries they fled from. You know, so I'd say it is those second generation Cubans, the Vietnamese, the Venezuelans, because a lot of Venezuelans have fled socialism in Venezuela, but they vote Democrat here because they think Democrats are about democracy. So this is what they tell the Chinese here. The Democrats say the Democratic Party, the Chinese immigrants say the Democratic Party is about democracy. The Republican Party is like the People's Republic of China.
Oh,
that's what they tell them. Okay,
cool.
So they scam them like that. So look, you've got a story to tell. If you've fled from Vietnam or Cuba or China or Eastern Europe, you've got a story to tell. And you need to start telling as many Americans as you can. Speak at your local church, speak at your local Kiwanis club or whatever you can, wherever you can. Tell them what you fled and what you see happening here. If enough people do that, that's going to wake a few people up. But get your kids active. You get active. You know, get active in the grassroots groups. Get active in the Republican assemblies in Florida. The Republican wing of the Republican Party, the real conservatives. Get active in a real conservative group. Take your election seriously. Don't come to this country with all your experience, then bow out. Then just hope the Americans know what they're doing, because the Americans don't, unfortunately. They haven't seen what you've seen. They've lived easy lives, sheltered lives. Unless they've been in the military and fought overseas, most of them have lived very sheltered lives here. And it's up for you to take the lead. You've come to this country, you're welcome, but please pay your part in saving it. Please do that, because you've got that unique experience.
Trevor, without giving away too much about the editions of the book that are coming out, can you share with us any senators or folks in Congress that people would be surprised to hear have ties to the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, it's not necessarily just the Chinese Communist Party. It could be all sorts of things, you know. Look, I'll say this. People like Kirsten Sinema, who people regard as a moderate Democrat, has got a 20-year history with the Communist Party in Arizona. Her replacement, Ruben Gallegos, who is probably going to win, it could well win against Kerry Lake in this election, is the candidate of the Communist Party. He is the Communist Party's candidate. Both senators from Connecticut, Blumenthal and Murphy. Murphy, the one who has gone on and on about Trump's Russia collusion, had a Communist Party member on his staff at the time and is deeply in bed with the Connecticut Communist Party. Joe, just trying to think. There's, Mrs. Nice, Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. Her father used to take her on bicycle tours of the Soviet Union as a young woman. She has been deeply in bed with the Democratic Socialists of America and other Marxists for over 30 years now. And she ran for president, but she's just Mrs. Nice from Minnesota. Both of your senators, Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden of Oregon, have deep ties to the communist movement. Merkley right now is supporting the Filipino Communist Revolutionary Movement in the Philippines. It's more, like Dick Durbin from Chicago, came out of a communist-controlled union, works with the Hana Center in in Chicago, which is a front for the North Korean communists. Chuck Schumer, deeply in bed from New York, deeply in bed with Democratic Socialists of America and pro-Iranian groups. But he sort of, because he lives in a highly Jewish city, he sort of had to keep those Iranian ties on the down low a little bit.
Right.
But they're there. You know, John Hickenlooper of Colorado, regarded as a moderate Democrat, but he was actively involved in communist peace groups as a young man, and he's been to the World Economic Forum every year for the last 7 years.
Wow.
You know? So, and has also went to Cuba, where he met with one of Cuba's top intelligence agents. So these are moderate Democrats. These are hardcore. Some of them in the book people understand. But here's a good one. Tammy Baldwin, who's up for election in Wisconsin this year. Deeply in bed with Democratic Socialist America for many, many, many years, but also a member of the Colombian Support Network, which supports the Colombian guerrillas who are fighting America in Colombia. The people who make their money selling cocaine to American kids, narco-terrorists. She's used her position in the US Congress to try and get US military aid cut off to the Colombian government so the guerrillas would take over. The current leader of Colombia, who's a former guerrilla, they've gone to the left now, she took him around Congress to meet her colleagues a few years ago. But how many people in Wisconsin do you think have any idea
None.
of her Marxist and terrorist background? You know, I could go, you know, Martin Heinrich from New Mexico, deeply in bed with the Communist Party of New Mexico and Democratic Socialists of America, and also with an eco-terrorist group called Earth First, who used to go out and do things like put spikes in trees so that when loggers would come along with their chainsaw, the chainsaw would hit the spike and explode in their faces. But he worked very closely with these people who now basically run the Bureau of Land Management and the Center for Biological Diversity, which has massive influence in this country. So I could go on and on and on. Two, you got it. Georgia, right? You got Warnock, you got Ossoff.
Mm-hmm.
Two left-wing senators. Raphael Warnock, a pastor, was part of the Abyssinian Baptist Church in New York, run by just forgotten his name, a pro-Cuban Marxist. Fidel Castro came to that church. You know, Warnock talks about his church comrades, not his church fellow members, his comrades. Warnock came back, it was embedded with this, came back to Georgia, worked with Democratic Socialists of America, worked with Acorn, worked with Stacey Abrams' pro-Chinese outfit, the New Georgia Project, to get elected. He became the chairman of it.
Wow.
Then Ossoff worked with Democratic Socialists of America, and the first thing he did when he got elected was get Joe Biden to appoint a member of Democratic Socialists of America to the head of the Environmental Protection Agency for the entire US Southeast. That was John Ossoff doing that. Put this Marxist who he worked with as head of the EPA for Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina. So that guy, Daniel Blackman was his name. I'm not sure if he's still in the position, but that's what Ossoff did, one of his first acts of office after getting elected with the help of Democratic Socialists of America, which is a communist organization, by the way. Don't be fooled by the name. It's a communist organization.
So they were able to infiltrate our government, but they've also infiltrated our churches, the enemy within the churches.
Can I just say too quickly, if people want to get my books, you
Yes.
can get them on Amazon, but if you want a signed copy, go to trevorloudon.com. Just my website, trevorloudon.com. You order a book, I'll sign them for you there. But yes, the churches, yeah, that's an issue. Look, the very first Communist Party front in America was the Methodist Federation for Social Action. This was back in the early 1900s. The Marxists decided very early on, as I said, they could never take America from the outside. It would have to be from the inside. And the church is the backbone of America. You know, the first country in the world founded on the principle that man's rights come from God, not from government, which made America strong, which made America prosper.
Yep.
You know, that's the reason why we're strong, because of that principle. And so they started to infiltrate the mainstream churches in the 20s. In the 20s, they told all their people, if you're brought up Methodist, go back, rejoin the Methodist Church. You brought up Baptist, rejoin the Baptist. You brought up Jewish, go back to the synagogue. Not to learn from them, but to spread communist influence into the churches. And by the 1940s, they did this in the Catholic Church as well. By the 1940s, they affiliated many of the mainstream churches with the National Council of Churches, which was affiliated with the World Council of Churches, which was run by the Soviet KGB. They used to call it the Communist Party at Prayer. Okay.
Wow.
But what happened in the 60s and the 70s, a lot of people left the mainstream churches and went into the evangelical movement. And the evangelicals backed Trump. They backed Reagan. They were anti-communist. They were good Christians. So starting with the 70s, they started a campaign to infiltrate the evangelical churches as well. And so by the 90s, they had a lot of pastors. They had a lot of people running Bible colleges and divinity schools. They did to the Bible colleges what they'd already done to the secular universities, just infiltrated them. And so by the early 2000s, they controlled most of these organizations, which is why we have all these woke pastors now. The pastors who don't know anything about the Old Testament, but will tell you all about your white privilege, and they're all about global warming, but they'll say nothing about subglobal heating. They are all about, refugee resettlement. They're all about wealth redistribution, but especially racism. This is what we call the woke church, is the Marxist church. This is the result of the Marxist infiltration of the Bible colleges and the seminaries that has gone on steroids and is now almost completed. Some of the rock solid Bible colleges out there that you want to send your kid to, you check them out. Most of them are now woke. Most of them are now Marxist.
I just think it's amazing that, the church is the reason why we have a free country. The church is the reason why we have the hospital. The church is the reason why. Where did the church go? Like, how do we abdicate that kind of role that we had? We had so much influence over the country, over the culture. RC and I, we had opened up a resource center, and I literally said the things that we're doing in this resource center the church should be doing all these things.
Up till the 50s, the church did. But see, America got rich and fat and happy and lazy. So churches got a little bit complacent. And then Johnson came along with his Johnson Amendment and told the churches they had to bow out of politics, or gave them an excuse to bow out. And then you had the liberal push and another thing happened in the 1960s when people were getting drafted to go to Vietnam. A lot of little communists thought, well, I'm not going to Vietnam to fight my brothers. The communists, they're my brothers. I'll get a deferment and go to Bible college.
Wow.
So a lot of them started to go to Bible college in the 70s, become pastors, left-wing Marxists who basically became pastors. Rick Warren, the very famous guy from San Francisco, from Southern California, Obama's favorite pastor, used to be involved with SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, radical Maoist Marxist, but he became one of the most famous pastors in America. And I criticized him at a meeting down in Southern California, and afterwards a whole bunch of people come and says, well, we go to his church, and Rick's great. And the guy said to me, and I was talking about how he promoted illegal immigration, and the guy said to me, I've been to his church 20 years. I've never heard him talk about illegal immigration. And the guy next to him said, well, Oh, you missed church last Friday, didn't you? Last Sunday, didn't you, Fred? That's all he talked about.
Wow.
Wow.
So, so in the old days, the communists would come to church and speak 90% they'd speak about 80% Marxism with a little bit of Christianity sprinkled on top.
Exactly.
Now they speak 80% gospel with about 10 or 20% Marxism sprinkled on top. They're a lot more subtle about it now because their overzealousness drove a lot of people out of the mainstream churches. So now the goal is turn the evangelicals and the Southern Baptists to the left. That will break the American conservative movement. That will give the Democrats, which we control, complete control over America. That's the way to a communist America. They see by destroying the evangelicals and the Baptists. And we did our movie, Enemies Within the Church, detailing this. And people can get that also from trevorloudon.com. If you're wondering why your church is not involved in the culture, if you're wondering why your church is a little bit woke, watch that movie, Enemies Within the Church, trevorloudon.com. It'll blow you away.
So
it offers the seeds for a fight back. That's the critical thing. If we want to save America, we've got to take the churches back.
So I was watching a news clip the other day, and the news anchor was saying, oh, there's these Christian nationalists, and those are the bad guys because they're all about MAGA. So we like the church. So real Christians, the ones who are not politically involved, they're good, but we need to be concerned about these Christian nationalists. So for our audience, I want to say, first of all, the word nationalist, they use that word as a slang. That's a slur against us, right? So I reject the word nationalist. I am a patriot. But at one point, do we just say, you know what, we need to be pushing back on the propaganda, the things that they're saying about who we are, because now they're coming into the church and they're dividing us. They're saying the churches that are talking about what's going on politically, those are the bad guys.
They're the nationalists. The good churches are the ones who are welcoming the refugees and
that's right.
and all worried about global warming, and that's the good guys. You're allowed to be political in church if you're left-wing political.
Right.
You're not allowed to. See, what's a Christian nationalist? It's someone who believes in God, someone who believes in the family, someone who believes in protecting the community and loving their country. This is evil stuff, right? This is how most of America was for 250 years. Right. This is a normal American, a Christian nationalist. Right. Well, it's a patriot. It's someone who loves God, their country, and their kids. Right. That's all it is. And now they've made that into a slur. Look, they call us Christian nationalists and fascists and racists, and we call them liberals and progressives. Well, if they're going to lie about us, how about we tell the truth about them? Let's stop calling liberals and progressives and call them Marxists and socialists and totalitarians. Let's name them for what they really, really are. Because all we believe in is God and country and kids. Amen. This is just normal American stuff. This is normal human stuff, but this is somehow bad because they want to marginalize us, divide us, shut us down so they can push their extreme agenda down our throats. So this is happening in the churches right now. You get the left-wing churches coming out condemning Christian nationalism, racism, Trumpism. We all know Trump's a Nazi who called all Mexicans rapists, right? We all know this. All lies. But, lies. What is the devil if he's not the prince of lies?
Exactly.
This is what we're living in a revolution which has been driven by diabolical lies.
Yep.
And we're going to have to tell the truth and be discerning. Telling the truth takes courage, but courage is proof of faith because your courage comes from your faith, and faith pleases God. If we're going to need God's help to get out of this mess, we're going to be very courageous and tell the truth regardless. It's the only way out of this mess.
So, Trevor, as we wrap up here, everyone can get your books and your films and everything at trevorloudon.com. We also noticed that you're also looking for support for KeyWiki. I've found that to be a very valuable resource. Can you give people just a brief idea about it, and then how they can support you there as well?
Yeah, KeyWiki, KeyWiki.org. So key, like turning a lock, wiki, and it's a sort of a pun on Kiwi. That's the slang word. That's the slang word for New Zealanders, right? Kiwi. But it's an encyclopedia of the US left. It's got 165,000 files on it. It's probably the second biggest website on the internet next to Wikipedia now. It's massive. And it's all about the American, British, and Australian, New Zealand, Canadian left. So you look up Joe Biden, you go to the search bar at the right-hand side, look up Joe Biden, give you all his communist connections. Look up Kamala Harris. Look up Florida Rising. Look up Maxwell Frost. Look up Chris Murphy from Connecticut. Look up Dianne Feinstein or Kirsten Sinema. And it's all laid out with blue links, lots of graphics and screenshots from communist publications, etc. So 165,000 files, everything from your street level radicals, your little local bomb throwers and cop haters, right up through your county commissioners, your church leaders, your education bureaucrats, your union officials, state reps, right up to Congress and the US Senate, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Jimmy Carter, you know, all these US presidents. So there's information on KeyWiki you'll never find anywhere else. My wife and I and my team has spent 15 years building this.
Wow.
15 years to bring up 164,000 files. Some are only stubs, but some of them are extensive. So you want to look up your local state rep or your local Congress member. All the Democrat Congress members are on it. Many of your state reps, county commissioners, mayors, etc. Just look them up.
Yeah. We strongly encourage our audience, people who watch us and read our stuff, know that as a research company, there is a lot of heavy lifting that happens there. And as I mentioned before, KeyWiki is valuable for us in being able to connect dots. And Trevor has it set up to where you can support KeyWiki with a sustaining gift or a one-time gift or whatever. But I wanted to bring it up today because it's another great resource from someone who has made the investment in doing that. And as we wrap here, everyone, the ability to have Trevor on the show and to be able to do this with him is an incredible blessing because he is out on the front lines fighting this battle. There are a number of great folks that do this work, but Trevor has been at this so long, connecting the dots, that it's a blessing to have him with us, but it is certainly worth getting his books and his videos and supporting platforms like KeyWiki, because the engine won't go unless we get behind it, put fuel in it, and make sure that folks like Trevor have what they need in order to continue the fight and do the work that they do.
Yeah, well, thanks, Darcy, because I exist on commissions, book sales, and donations to KeyWiki. There's no foundation, there's no George Soros in the background funding it or anything like that. This is just people putting in $50 here, $10 here, $20 here, maybe 200 here, whatever. That's what keeps us going. And that KeyWiki website is used by people all over the country every day in political campaigns and scoreboard races and, writing articles and blog posts, etc. So it's a huge, massive resource for people. So we do appreciate anybody who uses it or supports it to chip in a few bucks every now and then. It's much appreciated.
Yeah. So Trevor, thanks again for being with us. Everyone, to learn more, you can go to SherlockExposes.com. This special interview is going to be posted and remain posted, and we will continue to highlight it. For Julianna Ormond and Trevor Loudon, I'm RC Williams for Rip from the Headlines Live, and we will see you soon.